Elden Ring is more than big Dark Souls. A lot of people want me to watch this. A lot of people have been talking about Elden Ring. I've honestly been thinking about this game a lot. Like, every day I've thought about this game. I'm so excited to play this game. Let's watch it.
Miyazaki just did a bunch of interviews, and we learned a lot of really significant things.
Oh, shit.
For example, see this weapon art? Turns out it's not specific to this weapon. Instead, you can mix and match weapon arts to multiple weapons.
So I could use that with a giant two-handed sword. Fuck.
See this pot boy? You might be able to capture enemies like this and then summon them as spirit helpers that fight alongside you.
Like
Bosses
a necromancer?
can supposedly be tackled in any order. We now know a lot about which parts of the story were written by George R.R. Martin, and multiplayer is supposed to be more convenient than ever before. Elden Ring news has really only just begun.
That's awesome.
So please subscribe and keep up with it all. For the purposes of this video, though, I've split the information into 4
It's like they made this game.
categories.
It's like they made this game for me because they're like, man, Asmon really likes Dark Souls. But Asmon also really likes mounts. How can we do something to where like we have mounts in Dark Souls? And this is what happened. We got Elden Ring. Like it's like they made this shit for me.
Gameplay, the open world, multiplayer, and story. Let's begin with gameplay.
Okay.
So Elden Ring will see the return of the stamina bar, though Miyazaki notes that he feels like it has less influence on the player overall compared to previous games.
That's good.
It sounds like it's going to be closest to Bloodborne, though, where stamina can stop you from spamming actions up to a certain point, but still allows for really fast-paced gameplay.
Yeah.
I've obviously learned a lot from working on Sekiro most recently, and like Sekiro, Elden Ring also has an implementation of stealth. You can crouch to sneak up on enemies, bypass certain areas, or simply assess situations while hiding in long grass. Additionally, when night falls, your stealth is enhanced, but your visibility is decreased, and some scary enemies will only appear at night as well.
So that's one thing that a lot of games have now, is they have, so there's a day and night cycle, and then on top of that, not only is there a day and night cycle, but there's special enemies that spawn only at that time. Like, I know there's so many games that have this, right? Like, Wraiths only spawn at night in Valheim and swamps and shit. And I think that's cool. Like, I think that's actually so fucking badass. Minecraft, I mean, Minecraft's the best example, but I never really got into Minecraft a whole lot. But either way, I think this is a good idea. It makes the game feel like it's more of like a living, breathing experience rather than just, you know, a video game.
Elden Ring now also has a jump button, allowing you to avoid sweeping attacks and perform jump attacks that differ based on the weapon you wield.
So that's like Sekiro.
Furthermore, fall damage has been greatly reduced to encourage your vertical exploration.
That's fucking awesome.
And unlike any game before it, Elden Ring has horseback combat, though Miyazaki stresses that...
You guys ever play Dark Souls 2? With, you go down that little fucking, that well, and it's like, if you go like this, you're good. But if you go like, oh, you're dead. You're dead. Yeah, it's 100. That's 100. Oh, you're dead. That's it. It's done. Like that fucking well. The cat ring. I know you gotta buy the cat ring from the vendor, but like still, it's annoying as a motherfucker, man.
Most battles will still be done on foot, except for certain fights where you might need that extra mobility.
That's so cool, man.
The newest and most fascinating addition to Elden Ring's gameplay, in my opinion, are summonable spirits. So, as seen briefly in the trailer, these are enemy-based spirits that fight alongside you, and they fulfill certain roles, like tanking for you, or attacking from range, or assisting you in melee. They're also able to be leveled up, apparently, and maybe even customized. Now, they can't be summoned everywhere, but they are something that you're apparently supposed to consider as a part of your build, similar to how you pick up a weapon and upgrade that. And like weapons, who you choose to summon will also come down to personal taste. Miyazaki himself says that players might often enjoy a certain enemy tagging along with them, even if they're not much use in combat. Potboy, I choose you. It's funny.
See, like, for me, I don't really give a fuck about that shit, dude. Like, I'm not about that at all. Like, I'm all about being able to have, like, I'm going by myself, and I'm going on, and I'm going into, like, battle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not about any of that other bullshit. I like the idea of just going in and popping off right on the very, I'm a lone wolf. That's right, I'm a lone wolf.
ever since I saw Father Owl summon a bird that defends him, I thought this would make a good addition to the game.
Does it really defend him?
It's crazy that it's actually a thing now. In fact, you literally see a character summon a bird here. So spirits having these specific roles and unique animations is so much better than just having a human NPC following you around awkwardly, like in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Overall, though, Elden Ring is probably closest to Dark Souls in terms of gameplay and combat.
It seems that way.
This is what was expected, but what I didn't expect was how deep they're going with build customization.
Oh.
Because in addition to magic, weapons, armor, and spirit summons now, you also have skills. So in Dark Souls, every weapon had a different weapon art.
Yeah.
Special attacks that could be activated with L2. Sekiro also had combat arts, which you could equip to your character and perform by holding L1.
Mortal motherfucking blade, dude. Like, I remember, like, the moment that I got that completely, I'm like, man, I don't know about this game. The moment I got that, and like there were like these mobs, because you would fight them and they have like these like weird like polearm things. And I'm like, wait, so I can just Mortal Blade on these guys? And I just hit them, it's like, woof, woof. It just beat the shit out of them. Because in Black Desert Online, it had this other ability. You got it like level 48, and it did the exact same animation. And I remember that ability was also OP as fuck. So yeah, I'm really glad that they're adding in more abilities and things like that you can do.
And R1.
Thank you.
I feel like neither of these things were a huge success gameplay-wise.
So badass.
But now in Elden Ring we have skills, which are kind of a combination of weapon arts and combat arts. So there are around 100 skills in total, apparently, and they can be freely assigned.
So was that a skill, that attack?
Large variety of weapons.
Like that right there.
So you see this jump back slash the character is doing with the curved sword? If you liked the skill, but not the sword, then you could assign this skill to a different weapon.
That would be crazy.
This alone is an insane amount of build variety.
Yeah.
PvP players are going to love this, and it's going to help to fill the open world with discovery.
See, like, this is a thing, I keep pausing it because I have, like, so many things I want to say, but, like, with Demon Souls, for example, like, Demon Souls was so well designed. Like, the game was just, the programming and, like, just, like, the gameplay for Demon Souls was immaculate. It was so fucking good. But the problem with Demon Souls is the game was just, it was like classic WoW. There just wasn't really a lot of variability of it. Like, many of the weapons had the exact same animations. They did many of the same things. You had a handful of special cool weapons like the Dragon Bone Smasher or whatever. But other than that, you had like maybe 7 or 8 or maybe 12 realistically different builds that you could go in that was good. And then other than that, everything else was really kind of boring. And I think Demon Souls gave people the taste of what it feels like to play a game that's playing at like 100% functionality, but they just didn't really get the level of customization that they wanted. And it looks like Elden Ring is really trying to go that extra mile with the customization. That's cool.
Abilities. The open world is also filled with crafting materials, which you can search for and use to create the items you need the most.
Wow.
A lot of these, says Miyazaki, will be healing items, which will be necessary, he says, since you might find yourself fighting for a longer time between checkpoints than in previous games.
Oh, shit.
Of course, all this experience you get from
like
fighting
grass.
Can also be used to level up your character.
Uh-huh.
So, between skills, spirit summons, weapons, magic, armor, consumables, and crafting materials, you're going to have a ton of tools at your disposal to take on the world.
Okay.
But one thing to consider is that I feel like all of this is going to affect the difficulty of the game, specifically its skill floor. So, something like Sekiro, for example, had a very high skill floor.
Yeah.
In order to progress in that game, you literally needed to have the mechanical skill to overcome certain fights. In that game, you can't rely on leveling up your character or using tools that the boss is weak to. Elden Ring, on the other hand...
Well, it's like in Sekiro, there were so many other things that you couldn't do, right? And like, he's totally right. Like, in a lot of bosses, like, think about almost all the bosses in Dark Souls. Like, besides Ornstein and Smo, there's almost some kind of fucking... some exploit, some bullshit that you can do against the boss, and it will just make the boss, like, it'll just die. Like firecracker spam, but you can't use that many of them. And like firecracker spam doesn't really work that well. Like you'd use it against like what, phase 2 Ishin or something like that. It's not like super good. And Sekiro also didn't have summons. You couldn't really level up in like a meaningful way. The only thing you could do is really get prayer beads and maybe like kill another boss, like an optional boss, and get the damage increase from that. But realistically, Sekiro was a get good game. That was the solution. If you were dying to a boss, 9 times out of 10, the solution to dying to a boss is get good. But maybe only 3 or 4 times out of 10, the solution in Dark Souls was get good. Because like almost every boss, like you've got a few of them, right? Like you can't really cheese, well, you can cheese Manus because you can shoot him from like before he's in there. But like Calamite, you can't really cheese Calamite as far as I know. You can't cheese Artorias really, but you can because you can get Havel's armor and you can be pretty much like you can have so much poise you can just keep attacking him and it won't matter. So like if I think about this, I could probably give you like a way to cheese every fucking boss. Now Sekiro does have some bosses that you can cheese, right? You can like Guardian Ape phase 1, you can cheese with firecrackers and with the Mortal Blade, sure. But many other bosses, like the cheese method for some bosses, like for Genichiro, right, where you can like get him against a wall and like hit him with like the left side of your sword, like that's like a speedrun strat. But like that's harder to do than just beating the boss. So like Sekiro had so many more like get good situations than Dark Souls did, and I think it had even more than Bloodborne did. So it might have been too much. It might have been too much because there was no way that an average player could get through the game.
Will offer ways
couldn't out-level in
Sekiro to overcome difficulty. It's just like Dark Souls in that regard. This isn't a bad thing. It just means that if you're lacking a bit of the mechanical skill, difficulty can also be overcome.
You can offset it.
Preparation, cooperation, and exploration as well.
Which I think is good.
While exploring the massive world, you'll also have access to a world map, which you can consult to see where you are, where you've been, and where you've yet to go.
Yeah.
This map will work in the open world, but apparently not in the smaller spaces of each map. These legacy dungeons are said to be more akin to what we're used to in Dark Souls. And each open world will have its own main dungeon, as well as catacombs, camps, and...
No, the map, the thing is with the map, like what he's saying is like, all right, let me show you in WoW, okay? So he means like, this is the map. He doesn't mean, it means this is the map, not this. This is not the map, this is the map. Which I think is fine. Because if you're playing a massive open world game without a map, I feel like it's just asking for frustration and confusion.
Fortresses interspersed throughout the open world. There are 6 open worlds that we'll be exploring, and each is going to be the domain of demigod characters that we'll discuss in a different video.
Oh shit.
Altogether though, these areas are called the Lands Between, and they're arranged in such a way that there is a logical progression to these open worlds, although you don't have to follow it. In fact, apparently you can skip more than half the game's bosses if you want to. In that sense, the game sounds a lot more like Breath of the Wild, where the main path is quite clear, but side paths are tempting to explore.
See, one thing that does worry me about this, and this is something that I feel like this is a mistake that they made in Dark Souls 1, is that the experience from the beginning of Dark Souls 1 up to the point where you complete Anor Londo is, I think, one of the greatest experiences in gaming, period, that it ever has had to offer in history. However, what happens is that after you beat Anor Londo, you have the first thing you do after Anor Londo is challenging. But like, let's say you go and you kill Seath the Scaleless, and then you decide you want to kill Nito after that. Nito is going to be a joke because it's basically like you're going up in the difficulty curve, and because all of the Lord vessels that you have to get are they're the same difficulty, the first one you do is challenging, and then let's say you're here and then it goes down. Like, and it gets easier. So if you do 4 Kings first, it might be really hard. But if you did 4 Kings like I did and you already had a bunch of poise gear and you were high level, I just sat there and fucking auto attack through them and I killed them in 2 tries. It was a joke. So That was the problem that I do think that like Dark Souls 1 had, and I think Bloodborne doesn't really have that problem as much, but it still does. And that's the issue with not having like linear progression, is that you can have people that get sidetracked and they do a boss that they shouldn't have done a little bit early, right? Like some people do Nameless King early, other things like that. And the process of doing that ends up over leveling them for the rest of the content, and it makes the challenge of the rest of the content not as fulfilling. And so I'm curious to see if Elden Ring is going to be able to deal with that.
Miyazaki, none of these
Dancer is another good example that you can do very early.
Appear on your map. Instead, it's up to the player to mark these things themselves manually, which I feel like is fantastic for immersion. A little later in the game, the player will be able to access a hub area where you can branch out into the 6 main areas of the lands between. Okay. On top of this, fast travel is also present, though FromSoftware say that they encourage users to enjoy the exploration and uncover the map for themselves.
Okay.
Like in all open world games, and like in Dark Souls as well, the more you discover, the more powerful your character becomes, and I'm sure that the difficulty of a FromSoftware game will be a really good motivator for exploring the world.
Yeah, I would assume
just
so.
Fast traveling.
Some item or another item that you need. This was a problem
I noticed in Ghost of Tsushima. At some point, I became so powerful that I didn't really need to explore the game anymore.
Exactly.
So I think that the skill of FromSoftware in designing difficult areas will really help to motivate you to
That's what I worry about.
A bit more. But FromSoftware says that another motivator for exploring is going to be meeting NPCs around the world, who are said to add drama to the journey. They add twists to the narrative, and they also influence the endings. According to Miyazaki,
really cool.
The NPCs you meet will have a really big impact on the way you view the world and the story, because they'll reveal how they see the world, and he even calls them protagonists, and says that they're an extremely important part of Elden Ring, which is certainly more than he's said about NPCs in past games.
That's interesting.
For all these NPCs, however, there will be no bustling towns or villages in Elden Ring, compared to something like Breath of the Wild. This isn't their specialty, he says, so they've chosen to focus on other things, like dungeons and level design, and also character customization. I think that's a good idea. The usual, fragmentary story.
I feel like all of the FromSoft games are very much solitary. In many ways, they're very much solitary. Like, especially in Dark Souls, like Sekiro, you have some interactions with other players, but they're very much solitary. And so I think that keeping up with that mindset is a good idea.
Presentation methods through item descriptions and dialogue are said to be expected, though the team also says that they're leveraging what they learned from Sekiro and think they'll be better able to present the surface plot through dialogue and cutscenes.
That's a good idea.
But what is really said to be different this time is how the story of this game came to be written. In the past, Miyazaki says that he would set a game system and then write a story that matches that, but this time he says it was kind of the opposite. George Martin wrote the foundations of the story. He came up with the mythos of the world, including the Tarnished and the 6 demigods, and then the team applied gameplay.
Don't they have 7 gods in Game of Thrones?
That story. FromSoftware said that they expected to have to leave out parts of the mythos to suit the game systems, but that luckily it ended up not being like that, and that their collaboration was a very fruitful one. Speaking of collaboration, the developers are aiming to make it easier to co-op. Firstly, you previously needed items like Humanity or Embers in order to participate in online play, but now this requirement has been either reduced or removed. Secondly, because the world is so vast now, special locations now exist where players can leave their signs and see who is currently available. Lastly, once you're sharing a world with someone, it seems like interface elements will be added to provide more information about other players in the world. And
that's cool.
To enhance the connections
you see their gear and shit
around you,
that's badass.
Something called groups are being added to the game. So once you join a group, you'll be able to single out the phantoms, the bloodstains, and the messages from other people in your group to connect on a more relatable level. For example, I'll probably be able to set the password Potboy, and you guys will be able to see and connect with other people who have chosen the superior spirit companion. On top of this, the game will also have covenants, which are said to add flavor to the multiplayer. You know, something like the Aldrich Faithful from Dark Souls 3.
Yeah,
for example,
they have a lot of these.
Roleplay as a defender of Aldrich, this kind of thing is back in the game. And PvP is also, of course, confirmed. It's even possible in these
covenants.
Massive open fields,
because of WoW.
Is a nice surprise. That said, though, Miyazaki said that you can't use your horse in the open field in PvP, which kind of
that
confuses
kind of
me
makes sense.
I can see how PvP might be awkward on horseback, but I don't understand how they're going to disable you from getting on your horse. It just seems so necessary for the open world. Before you go, consider checking out the Elden Ring inspired merch I mentioned in the last video.
Cool.
Check out the last video, which is more of an analysis of the trailer, and keep an eye out for a story.
It's so funny for me to see the first trailer because it was so long ago I forgot about it.
Video, which I think I'm going to work on next.
Yeah, I watched this like 2 years ago.
On the story that I haven't covered, particularly on the official websites, and also about all the contextualization we can give to the first trailer that was released. So keep an eye out for that video, and
I'll
see you guys next time. So much fun covering all this stuff. So thank you for being here.
Alrighty, boys. So begins the time. So begins the day. So begins the raid.